Now let's move on. Let's gear up for our first panel discussion of the day. The topic is student-centered learning, empowering individual growth and creativity. And the topics that would be covered within this topic is how educators approach student-centered learning and what should be the magnitude of their involvement. What is the role of curriculum in the student-centered learning, and what are the potential challenges of student-centered approach and how to solve them. To deliberate on the same, I would like to call on stage our panelist, 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 Kanungo, CEO, Redcliffe Groups of School. I request everyone to please keep clapping for them. 𝗟𝗏 Veena Mankoti, Academic Director, VIP Group of Institutions, Hyderabad. Divya Dubey, Founder Principal, Radiant Tapovan School, Hyderabad. Tanupreet Kaur, Principal, Takshila Public School, Sikandrabad. Sonia Nagpal, Principal, Gitanjali Vedika School, Hyderabad. And Dr. B. Ebenezer, Educationist, Academician and Consultant Psychologist, 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 School, Hyderabad. May we have a huge round of applause for all the panelists? We welcome each one of you for the panel discussion. And now it's time to call the moderator on the stage with a huge energy. I would like to call on stage our moderator for this panel, Dr. Radha Singh, Director Training and New School Operations, DPS, Hyderabad, Pallavi Group of Institutions. Over to you, ma'am. Please lead the panel.
So good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. And I welcome you all here to join me on this panel that we're going to be having for the next half an hour. We're already, I think, getting close to lunchtime, so I don't want to keep you all waiting very long. We'll try to make it short and crisp while we have some takeaway from here. We're going to be talking about a topic that we have, the focus that we have for today, which is gaining a lot of prominence, and that happens to be the student-centered learning. Many of us are already well into this transformation, the transition that has happened from the teacher-centered learning to the student-centered learning. Having said this, there is still some area which I think needs some clarity, and to bring out that clarity, I have with me the panel you just saw. Very highly accomplished panel, very experienced, and they have a lot to share with all of us. So what is it that we're going to try and explore today in this next half an hour? We're going to be looking at student-centered learning. Number one, as a transitioning from teacher-centered classrooms to student-centered classrooms, number one. Number two, how is it going to benefit our children, if at all it's going to benefit? And number three, we are going to talk about how are we going to make this happen? Because, there's a lot that's available which says that this system of learning, which is student-centered, is very beneficial, especially to the learners. But then how are we going to make it happen? That is the biggest challenge that we normally face. And lastly, if at all there are challenges, many of us will be facing some. So how are we going to ease this down? So we are going to be having four major areas of focus today, and we'll try to make it as sweet, as crisp, and as quick as possible. Okay, now having said that the student-centered learning is gaining prominence, probably that is mainly because we talk about preparing children for future. Now, if you're going to be preparing children for future, there is a transformation of the role of a teacher also. The teacher doesn't remain the same. She's going to be different as well. How is she going to be different? Why will she be different? Should she be different? A teacher is a teacher, isn't it? But then, with this kind of a focus shifting from the teacher to the taught, we see that there is a role change also. There's a change of role. She's going to look a little different. So all of us being from the same domain. We're all having very varied experiences in our classrooms, but we're going to try and make sense out of what is going to be discussed here today. So, without taking too much time here, I'd like to have my first question. I think I'd like to speak to Ms. Sonia ji. I have a question for you, and you're going to be starting this discussion. We are saying that the student-centered learning is going to gain and has already gained a lot of prominence. There's a lot that we get to see. There's a lot we get to hear about it. Why do you think this is gaining prominence now? Was it not good with the teachers doing the teaching and the student doing the learning? What's brought about this difference here?
So, ma'am, a very relevant question in these times. And I've been an educator for around 22 years now. And I know my role has changed. Earlier, I think the classrooms were very, very passive. They are very active now. And the earlier traditional methods, they were one-size-fits-all kind of classrooms. But now, because of the student-centric learning, the SCL, in today's times, we have understood that each child is unique. And his individuality should be respected with the abilities and shortcomings. We all have that. We all have also understood that each student has a different learning requirement. Some of the students may like to learn just the fundamentals, just the basics of an idea, while the others might like to, deep dive into a particular concept. So as a teacher, I must understand that. And I must discover my students. I must know what their need is, what is their interest, so that I'm able to motivate them and they are able to learn in a fun way. So SCL uses a variety of mediums and practical applications in which children, when they immerse, they're going to be lifelong learners, is what I have to say, ma'am. And that is why it is gaining momentum, because we can actually see the results. And in the coming future talks, I will give examples of what we do in our school and how that's helping my students. Thank you.
Sure. There's a leading question to this. Anybody can take this. Now we are talking about student-centered learning, and you said since children have a different, not everybody learns the same way. They all have their own learning styles. Understanding that we have our classrooms, which are not small. They have a minimum at least 30 on an average. We do have smaller classrooms as well, but we'd like to talk about this 30 and more. How do you make this happen? Do we say it's for the classrooms with smaller strength, or it is for everybody? But then how do you make it happen? Anybody can take this, please.
Yeah, let me answer this question.
Yeah, sure, sir.
We see an inverted pyramid in the learning styles of the students right now, because earlier at the base were auditory learners, and in the middle of the pyramid were visual and kinesthetic, very few children.
Yes.
Now it's the other way around.
It's the other way around.
So the pyramid is inverted with a huge, auditory learners coming to the base of the pyramid, like the pointed apex, which is inverted down.
It's coming down,
and
yeah.
In the middle you find the, visual learners, and kinesthetic comes up. So if we are able to address the kinesthetic, students of the classroom, it covers both the auditory as well as the visual learners. So when you're talking about a large classroom size, might be 30 plus, it could really address. And one more thing is there is something called as adaptive testing, which we are now hearing about.
Yes.
Why not adaptive learning?
Why not?
Why not
True,
adaptive learning? Because each student learns at a different pace and different style. So if that can be addressed, I think a large group can be easily handled.
We can address larger class sizes also. So, Divyaji, I have a question for you here. If we are going to be indulging in the inverted pyramid here, we are talking about the auditory going on top, the majority of them getting covered there. Where do you see the teachers? What are they doing?
We generally see the teachers, when it comes to SCL, if we think about SCL, then the teachers would be playing a facilitator role.
Oh, okay.
As a guide. They will be guiding the students.
Okay.
But when it comes to the children, when we have the larger group with varied capabilities of children, then the teacher has to give them the right approach to each group of the children. So as our scripture says, like Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevayam, where the teacher has to take up many questions from children, yeah, where she should make the children more curious and should be able to make them lifelong learners. Yeah. So the teacher, the educator has to navigate through the complexities of learning and should be able to cater the needs and interest of each child.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
So like I said earlier, as teachers, we need to discover our children. And now I think we all would agree that we are doing more than, or we are playing more than the role of a teacher. Aren't we also the second parents to them? I think this generation, what we are witnessing is that the parents are working and they hardly have any time to spend with their children. Even if when they are sitting with their children, they are on their mobiles, they are working. They are not listening. So we as teachers, we need to understand our students and then provide them opportunities based on their strengths and weaknesses. And for that, I feel we must use the 5E formula to explore, give them various opportunities so that we discover the various facets of their personalities. We engage with them, we interact with them so that we get to know their home backgrounds, what is going on at home as well. We know their strengths and weaknesses. We empathize so that we are able to connect with their feelings and emotions. Today, they don't know whom to go to because parents are occupied. So like Ms. Manjula had said, parenting, we have to tell the parents.
Sure.
So that we need to empower our students, giving them voice and choice. So I'm not saying that entire learning the students have to direct, but we can give them that choice. So I'll just give you an example where my physics teacher was teaching, force and pressure. And she asked the students, so, how would you like to learn it? Some student just like that said, we want to go to ISRO. Oh. We want to learn force and we made it happen.
Oh, good.
So my 10th grade students, all of them, they went to ISRO. They learned the interaction between matter and energy, torque, force and pressure. So I would like to give various examples later, but that's how we do it. We must give that voice and choice. And the last E is equity.
Yes.
When the children feel there is equity in the class, there is fairness, they are valued and respected, I think that is the formula for success. They will learn then. That is what I have to say, ma'am.
Oh, great. Lovely. Thanks for this very valuable insight that we have here. And there's another wing that is actually stemming out. Mr. 𝗍𝗶𝗸𝗲, I'd like to ask you, under these circumstances, when we are talking about teacher having to give this kind of space and provide scope for learning, where do you see the creativity and the critical thinking headed in a class of that nature? Where is it going?
See, I'd like to take a step back and then go over the question. See, when we look at student-centered learning, I don't think that conceptually it's a new concept.
It's not,
right?
certainly.
So if we, how many of you are parents here?
I guess almost everybody is.
Right? How many of you have taught your children to talk? Almost everyone, right? So when we teach our children, a baby to talk, what do we do? Do we like put 5 babies and say, today I'm going to teach you 5 words? Is that the way that we teach? Never, right? What do? We see where the child is. If he's currently babbling and he is just asking water, we just tell him, this is water, 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 right? We don't tell him water when he is like, playing. when he is going for water, that time we say this is water. So what are we fundamentally doing? Fundamentally what we are doing is, we are going with the flow of the child, what he is doing. We are going to find teachable moments. We are not just randomly selecting that today I am going to decide that today I will only teach food words to my child. It is going with the flow of the child. At the same time, it's not forcing the child. Suppose the child is running and he's playing something. I'll not say 3 to 4 p.m. is teaching time for the child. So 3 se 4 baje today I will teach my baby to talk. Do we ever do that? No. We are with the child. We see where the child is going. And whenever there is an opportunity to teach something, we support and facilitate that learning. That's the normal way of human interaction and teaching. See, fundamentally, if we look at it, what is teaching? Teaching is a way of that a person, a more experienced person is getting a lesser experienced person to make sense of the world around him by guiding and helping. That's all that is to it, isn't it? What we have to do in a school, if we are going for a student-centered learning, is take that 1:1 interaction and see how we can replicate it 1:many interactions, right? Jo hum 1:1 pe kar rahe hain, how are we going to do it is 1:10 or 1:15 or 1:30. That's fundamentally where it is. So when we come to ma'am's question, whether creativity is going to take a hit, obviously not, because see, when we are going with a student-centered learning, we are fundamentally looking at what the child is going to explore.
Sure.
And we are not going to bind ourselves to what we want to teach, but giving the creativity of the child a little longer leash to go and explore the depth that he or she wants to explore, and not get bound down that, okay, my book says that you have to teach Mughal emperor the names 4 things and what are the Navratnas of Akbar, and that is where, you know, any other question beyond it the child wants to explore, you stop it and say, bas itna hi course mein tha. So the moment you give that, allow that freedom for the child to go where he wants to go, the creativity obviously will take a upswing and never a downswing, right?
Okay.
So definitely student-centered learning, fundamentally, if we look at from the concept that it brings, is going to be a creative process in the nature by itself.
Okay. Vinaji, having heard David's talk about providing this kind of opportunities where the child gets enough scope and space to work on to develop some creativity, how do you see this kind of openness, the shift from a teacher to a student, is going to prepare and equip a student for the future?
Thank you, Dr. Radha, for this question. So I would like to, take your attention to how the education system has changed and what is the need of student-centered learning. Basically, we are getting back to our Gurukul system. The need that we have is, are we able to cater the education or the learning to each and every individual? 20 years back or 30 years back when we were students, it was a one way of teaching where teacher was the only one, who was taking care of all the students, irrespective of whether we are able to reach the student or not. So I would like to, bring in that how are we guiding our teachers to cater to each and individual child. First is, I always believe in that the teachers, educators have to have a very good connection with each and every child. Okay. So the moment they enter the academic year, I think it doesn't take for a teacher to understand each child in just 1 week time. What is the child, needs? What is the child strong points? And when we talk about student-centered learning, it is a must need of the hour where the child learns the best when he himself is engaged and he himself is involved. That's very important. Now, I would like to bring your attention to, we talk about 21st century skills.
Yeah.
21st century skills are collaborative learning, critical thinking, learning in groups. And our UNESCO has, talked about education, which focuses on 4 pillars. It is about learning to know, learning to do, learning to live together, and learning to be.
Yes.
So if you take these 4 pillars of education and relate it to your 21st century skills. We all have the answers. So how are we bringing this kind of learning environment to our student is what student-centered learning is. Now, our teachers, we say that student-centered learning we are doing this way, that way. So first thing is, a class of 20 or 35 students, are our teachers equipped to bring in this kind of culture to the classrooms?
That is a big question.
Right? So coming to the solution of what we as educators or school heads can do is, we need to equip our teachers to get into that mode of learning. So I'm sure what generally we do is every Saturday, if the school is not working, that we have ample time, how are we grooming our teachers for that?
Yes.
A session of 1 hour or 2 hours, which most of us must be doing in our respective schools, bring in lot of value to the teachers to understand what SCL is all about. Okay? Now, how is the child getting benefit? Now, we talk about leadership skills. We talk about, as the UNESCO has said, live together, learn to know, learn to do. So these all skills are integrated with our 21st century skills. Do we not want our child to be inquisitive, to know? Is what he is learning, is it sufficient to know as per the curriculum? No. The child has unboundless limits, Give them the opportunity, they will scale much higher than our expectation. So that is what is the consequence, that is what is the conclusion of SCL. So we'll take it up further, ma'am, in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your opinion here. Tanuji, I have a question here. Would it be correct to say under these circumstances that SCL is more, in the SCL, especially when you're going to do it in the classroom as a transaction, can we say that the teacher is more a resource than a repository? Would it be correct to say that?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, the thing is, I read a very interesting sentence: stressed, depressed, and still well dressed. That goes for a teacher. That means she's coming to school well dressed, but is she carrying that mindset that she can give that curriculum approach which is needed right now by the new education policy? Because we are talking volumes about new education policy, but are we able to suffice that in the classroom? The classroom is of the strength of 30 and 35. Yes. So is the teacher able to know that this child is a slow learner, this child needs my assistance, this child needs my help? It is practically impossible. When we go at the grassroots level, we find that it is not that easy. Nowadays, I was reading one very interesting article. A teacher, in spite of being a mentor, a friend, philosopher, and a guide, himself or herself has to be a learner first. Because you have to learn that what is the need and what is the requirement. So that's not an easy task. That's a very difficult task. So for that, the teacher themselves have to be trained upon. Now, the teachers who did their B.Eds and M.Eds by 210 or 211, they are not well equipped with these kind of training methodologies. So we need to have workshops, we need to have proper setup which can groom and teach the teachers accordingly. So yes, we are facilitators, we are friends, we are mentors, we are guides, but are we able to give that at the grassroots level is still a big question.
Big question. Yeah, that's the answer that we are seeking. We'd like to know which way are we heading. Having said this, 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, there's a question for you now. We are having everybody talking about a classroom, no matter big, small, has to shift from the teacher to the student, ultimately to enable the children to be ready for tomorrow. In this process, I'm sure there will be a time that we find either the teacher or the student getting a little challenged. What could be that challenge here? Because there's a change of mindset here. The teacher needs to give away and the student needs to take it all up, right? How is she going to modify or transform her transactions to make sure that this is going to happen? Because this has to happen sooner or later. How are we going to match this or manage this mindset?
Thank you, ma'am, for asking that question. It's a very simple three called as KYC. Know your customer. They gave us a form and asked us to fill in case we missed out receiving the books. Same way, in a classroom, a teacher has to know KYC. Know your child. So this KYC should be a threefold KYC.
I think you need to applaud, please. You know,
what is that?
This is a lead.
Yeah, what is it?
Leading.
KYC. K
Absolutely.
is know how knowledgeable the child is, knowing what the child knows. Teaching is as simple as this, Dr. Radha. I say, knowing what they know and making them what they don't know is education.
Sure.
So, know what they actually are aware of. Second, do they have yearning for more knowledge? No, do they have yearning for more wisdom? Third, the C part is, are they confident of what they know?
Oh, yeah.
This KYC is the first step. Second step is, there should be a paradigm shift in the mindset of the teacher. Stop being a sage on the stage, boss, please. It's high time.
Yes.
Be a guide on the side.
So we should leave this place now.
I mean, of course, yes. Because children are well aware, they are well knowledgeable, they are well informed nowadays.
I think the children are prepared. Probably the resistance is from us all.
Exactly. So there should
don't move.
There should be a paradigm shift in the ideology of the teacher. Third aspect that I would like to say is, what are we preparing the children for? Are we preparing them for exams? Or are we preparing them for life? If this is the objective that is in the mind of the teacher, obviously the change will happen.
The change will happen. She's open to a change, right?
Before I close, I want to ask all of you a question. I request all of you to please respond, because we've been passive listeners. We want an active classroom here. Again, I don't want to be a sage on the stage. I want you all to understand that teachers are a guide by the side. How many of you have read this book by 𝗙𝗶𝗹𝗲, where he says, change cannot be given to you all the time. You must bring the change. How many of you have read that? How many of you have read it?
I've read it.
All of you? Again, I repeat, change cannot be given to you all the time. You must bring the change. Now, I repeat, how many of you have read that? 𝗙𝗶𝗹𝗲's book. Change cannot be given to you all the time. You must bring the change. I repeat my statement. Change cannot be given to you all the time. You must bring the change. 𝗙𝗶𝗹𝗲 was a bus conductor in route number 45 from Chennai to T Nagar. Now he says, change cannot be given to you all the time. You must bring the change. And we said, I've read it. That kind of mindset change is required right now.
Absolutely.
I know it all. If you say you have flopped, you have defeated the purpose of education that very day. Stop acting too smart and saying, I know it all. So, again, stop being a sage on the stage. Let's be guide on the side. Thank you so much.
I think that works. I think now it gets a little clearer than it was in the beginning, I guess. We should be in a better position to get it in place. I don't think it should be a difficult activity to transform the class from the teacher-oriented lesson to student-oriented. He's been talking a lot about how we can bring about a mindset. We always knew teachers and education is an agent of change. But somewhere I think it was lost. I think it's high time we bring it back now. We need to understand we are the people who can bring about a change. Like he said, not by being there to only preach, probably move there to the other side and be a guide by the side. And one last leading question. While trying to make this kind of a transformation, it's for anybody or probably everybody, what could be the challenges? Because this is not going to be, Divyaji, I think you're ready for, yes, she's ready with an answer. Because this is going to be a challenge for some. I don't think it's a big deal. You get into the right mindset, I think it'll make the job much easier. So what could be the challenge here?
Yeah. So as 𝗟𝗃 is very fascinating, as we all know, and when we are embarking on this journey of 𝗟𝗃, it's like we are meeting with both the ends. One side it is exciting and the other side it is very challenging.
Yes.
So the difficulties would be, like I personally feel that there will be a resistance from every side, mainly from a student perspective as well. Student also may resist.
Yes.
Yeah, and even from the teacher side, definitely, because they are accustomed to the traditional way of teaching. So it's very difficult for them to, get into the role of guide, because one has to understand that, the difference between watering a plant and nurturing the plant. Okay, so that comes up with a lot of responsibility. So that the facilitator role is just not mere a teacher role. It's like, it comes up with a lot of, responsibility. They need to hear the voice of the child, and they need to even respect their choices as well. So the main challenge would be the resistance from the community, from the teaching community. It could be even from parents, it could be from the management and from the administration as well. And resources also, like, resource constraint could also be there, because when it is student-centric learning, then the students need to have a lot of resources to explore, to engage, and to collaborate, and to present. So that will be one thing, and even time constraint, because, maybe one concept, it is easy to deal with, in a preaching way, but it is difficult to, make children engage in a particular topic with proper guidance, making them self-discover their path, self-aware, making them, helping them to metacognitive about their own, way of doing the things. So that could also be one of the challenge. So, and even the curriculum designing could also be a challenge. The curriculum designing should be so effective that it should support, it should cater the needs of the children. So I feel like these are the challenges are there, but if we can step out of our comfort zone, because change always is something very uncomfortable, because we need to step out and explore the new ways and new strategies to meet the child's requirement, to prepare the child for the future, and in a way thinking that, how can I uplift the child? If a teacher has that objective in her mind, that how can I uplift the child, thereby uplifting the nation. So if that objective is clear, then I think the challenges we can easily overcome. Yeah, thank you.
Please.
So I would like to add to what my fellow panelists said. 1091 times Edison failed in inventing the incandescent bulb, which was talking about resistance. Of the tungsten filament. Had we stopped there, had we not adopted, we wouldn't have had CFL bulbs.
Yes.
And we wouldn't have had the LEDs what we see now. So resistance will always be there, but finding out solutions to that resistance will always be a challenge which all the stakeholders have to address, including Edison.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
So I loved what Mrs. Dubey said, right, about whether we are watering the plant or nurturing the plant. One of the things, I think the first step towards overcoming that resistance from every quarter is, at least when we are talking our school leaders, is what we are measuring, right? Because many times what happens is, it is so much easier to see how much water has been given, right? It's the easier metrics.
Yes.
Pani diya ya nahi diya, right? Whether you have given 5 liters of water or not is easier for us to measure. And therefore, as school leaders, we get stuck in whether water has been given or not.
Yeah.
But when it's a deeper matrix, whether you have nurtured that plant is such a more difficult thing to measure, right? So I think a lot of the resistance can gotten overcome if we start measuring the right metrics.
Yes.
Instead of checking on, have the syllabus been completed, what is the class average, how many toppers. Every school today are measuring these things. Everybody is here, everybody is measuring. Parents are asking the same question. We are asking the same question to our teachers. Our management is asking the same question to the principals. But if we start moving to a different metrics, that how many children have progressed, how many children are happier today than they were yesterday, which are much softer metrics, and much more difficult to measure. But if you are able to focus on those metrics, then everybody starts talking that language, and then the resistance starts getting little diluted. Is I think one of the important things that needs to be done.
Tanuji, there is a question for you here. We were talking about how are we going to be managing with nurturing the children and not just letting them grow. When we're going to be talking about giving experiences where the context is real life, again, wouldn't this be a challenge? Are we really equipped to do that?
Ma'am, I think that's the biggest challenge, real life experiences. Now see, what we are facing, like we want to give certain real life experiences to the children.
Yes.
But it's very difficult to convince the parents on that.
So how are we going to handle this challenge now?
So now I think more than the children, the parents need the counseling. Because here nowadays we are doing helicopter parenting. We are hovering on the heads of the children. We want our wishes to be satisfied. We want our children to be in doctors and engineers only. This is a very common scenario. So we have to convince the parents this is not the deadline. You need to understand as a parent that having a child who is having good value system is also very good. Yesterday only I'll give an example. The 𝗖cie result was out. My school teacher, her daughter, got 88% and the mother blasted at her like anything. That you have got only 88% and that's not good marks. Now how do I get you registered for the resonance? So I had to counsel the mother. I said, ma'am, 88% is a good percentage and your child has acquired on your own. So why are you pressurizing the child that the percentage you got is not sufficing to my whims and fancies, basically I should say. So parents need to be counseled because they are a big hindrance in giving the real life experience to the children. Like I'll give you one more example. We are having a summer camp. In the summer camp we hosted buttermilk on the stage outside. Children bought curd and they served it to the people going. The parents were reluctant about it. This is a real life experience where you are learning a feeling of gratitude, that you are at a place where you are in the giving place, not at the taking place. So parents are not ready for that. So we need to counsel the parents first. That is the big thing I feel. That's a big challenge because in their heads it is, mera beta America jayega, mera beta doctor banega, meri beti engineer banegi. So this is the mindset. So for that we need to counsel them if we want to have real life experiences.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Apart from SCL, we should have PBS. So that is parent-based schools first. So apart from...
They need to get back one more time, I guess. Sonia ji, having said...
I would... can
yes,
I
please add, please add, please.
So my views are probably a little different, okay? See, we always believe that education prepares children for life. So when we talk about SCL, I'm sure slowly and gradually, many schools have adapted this.
Yes.
What we are doing, right? We talk about group discussions, we talk about role play, we talk about children working in collaboration. So we are already setting in, it's already there.
Yeah.
Now, how do we use this SEL to make children successful in life is our major motto, is what I feel, right? Because we as educators, we feel that all our children should be successful, not in scoring 99%, not coming to the expectations of the parent to some level, because parents have different expectations, but when the child really does or take up some good business, just passing out after 12, the same parent will be very much happy. So we are talking about the children being young entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs. We are talking about children taking up their own, passion or their own career in their own way. And let me also, bring it here in this platform that children are well equipped of what they want to do in life.
They are aware also.
They are aware, well informed, and thanks to technology to bringing that kind of a thought process in their mind. Okay. So when we give the platform of SCL to the students, they are much more exploring their skills. We talk about skills being developed. We talk about values being developed. So it's all in there. Only challenge that I see is with all of us and with our teachers.
Yes.
how are we catering that kind of environment in the classroom? So we all need to be very focused, keeping our learners, ability into consideration, that what kind of classes or plans we are giving it to our teachers, and are we giving them proper training for the same. If we are able to take up this challenge, I feel most of our students, learners, after 12th, they will have a very sound career for them, and parents will have no objections. One more thing I would like to add here is, when our children do these small activities, it is student-centric activities in the class, right? They definitely talk about the same back home. And parent is well aware that what the child is doing in the class. If nothing interesting, not engaging things are happening, the child has nothing to share with the parents. There comes the question that parent is unaware that what my child has learned today. So in every Saturday start or PTM, they say that I don't know what my child is learning. So if our SCL is in place in the classroom, I think parents will be more than happy to what we are doing in the school. So I think if we are able to have that kind of a planning, it is not easy, because we also need to explore a lot as per our curriculum, whether we are able to cater those student-centered learning environment. At the same time, we have to bring in the learning curriculum topics into the same system where the child is learning the same. So we as leaders need to be very proactive to bring in that kind of a culture. Right? Thank you.
Sonia ji, one last question regarding this before I wind it up. We are talking about a classroom where there's a lot of collaboration happening, where the children are discussing, discovering a lot of things happening. Do you see this kind of environment within the class? It's going to be difficult to maintain classroom order, which could ultimately become some kind of a resistance from the teacher side. The classroom is too noisy and there's too much happening in the class. How do I manage this classroom? Do you see that happening, or we are sorted on that level?
So here I would like to give you a few examples of what we did. So I'm an English teacher. And for teaching the various English skills like reading, writing, speaking, and listening, I prepared a lesson plan which said that my students have to prepare their own podcasts.
Okay.
Grade 7 students preparing their own podcasts. So I gave that agency to my students that they could choose the topic that they wanted to. So somebody chose ocean, somebody chose sports, somebody sciences, and so on. They were divided into groups. So they went back, they read about these things. They came back, they wrote their own script. So good. Reading skills were enhanced. They came back and they wrote their script, so the writing part was taken care of. Now, because technology is a very big part, integral part of our education, we told them about the various apps that they could use to create their podcast, like Garage and so on. And children are very much into it. They are tech savvy.
Yeah.
So they recorded themselves. They made their peer listen to it. So listening skills were involved. Speaking skills were involved. And that is the way they collaborated. So I don't think there was any kind of chaos. In fact, there was learning. And like you had asked a fellow panelist about creativity and critical thinking, they all made different podcasts. So their creativity was very much visible in the podcast that they created. So the cover page, how the image is going to be, what is the background music they are going to add. They did everything. Nice. And one more example which I would like, I want to actually share things, examples which are doable, which one can do in the class.
Implementables, like, we don't talk on paper. Papers, so everything looks easy.
The grammar relay race which we had. Now children love movement. They don't want to sit in the class and learn, right? Yeah. So we took them to the ground. We divided them into groups. We had stations set up. So the members had to run and go to a station, pick up the task. So the task could be chosen, underline the adjective in the sentence, or make the sentence from direct to indirect, and they had to run back and then the other team member would go. So there was no chaos. They were totally immersed in this experience, and I think that is how the learning happens. And sorry, like we said, are we making the children future ready? Yes, we are. Because we are teaching them life skills along with the academic knowledge that they are gaining.
Yes.
They learn adaptability, they learn tolerance, they learn creativity, critical thinking, and most importantly, teamwork.
Teamwork.
So I think we are making our children future ready by using such collaborative practices.
Okay, this will be the last, absolutely. This will be the closure. I want one tip that each of you can give to a starter who is planning to start SCL, trying to move from the TCL to the SCL, mode of learning. One tip, how do you begin? One tip each, so we get 6.
So my tip will be, don't put the book on a pedestal. There is a curriculum book. Take it as a resource.
Yes.
Don't take it as the be-all and end-all of the learning. Once that book is taken off the pedestal, automatically a lot of the other things come into the classroom which support a student-enabled learning. So don't put a book on a pedestal.
On the pedestal. Great. Divya ji.
Ma'am, I feel we have to start with a small goal. Maybe, experiment with few chapters or subject-wise and class-wise, then taking the feedback and experimenting and, we need to see the result of it, learning outcomes, and then we can move on to the, larger scale. That's what I feel like.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
So the end user in the entire pyramid or the ecosystem of the school education is the student.
Yeah.
Make them love what they do and make them love what they do.
Oh,
then
wonderful.
the change will happen.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So I would put it this way, that we all, educators, learners, have to be adaptable, have to be engaged, and have to be given a liberty to work. The liberty to work for the children as well, because then only there comes the passion of what they want to do.
Yes.
So that's the bottom line.
Great. Tanuji.
Ma'am, I would like to say that whatever we are giving to the children, let it be a takeaway home kind of a package where whatever we are teaching them should be incorporated with something which is of value based, so that they carry it at home and the parents are also aware, okay, this is the student-centered learning which is being given to our children and they are learning something
from that. Okay.
Ma'am, what I certainly strongly believe in, that if you make the learning, you connect it with a real life scenario, then the children find the significance and the relevance of it in their lives. And I think that is what takes them. So just to give you an example, when my students were studying about, limestone and so on, we brought in experts from the cement industry and telling them how when you add different compounds, you get different products. So when you connect the learning, we have the syllabuses, the curriculum prescribed by different boards.
Yes.
But when you connect it with a real life scenario, I think that is when the meaningful learning happens. Thank you.
So thank you, panelists. Thank you all for your very wise and, learning that was given, the tips that were given. And I hope our audience today has some takeaway as to what can be done to shift a traditional teacher-centered classroom to a more meaningful student-centered classrooms. I would definitely appreciate if you could share your results and any challenges that you have. Probably can write down to Time2Grow and we'd like to address it more. So thank you all. I hope you all learned something. Was there a takeaway here? You did? Thank you, thank you. Thank you for being wonderful audience. And is there anything that you would like to ask our panelists one last time before we leave the stage? Is there anybody? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am. Would you like to have a mic? Can we give her a mic, please? Come over here in that case.
So what I wanted to suggest is, and which has worked at our schools as well, is one of the strategies that we use is entry ticket and exit ticket.
Yeah.
I do not know if you are aware of it, but it is just that while I'm entering into the class, there would be relevant questions that are asked, and it is an entry. Of course, all the children would want to enter.
Definitely.
Unless there are some mischievous lot, but that's okay. I think we can.
I think they fall into place once they know what is the reason and why they're doing it, when they get engaged meaningfully, and I think it works.
So entry and exit ticket for the starting of the class, that is the initial introduction and recap, has worked very well at our school. Yeah,
awesome.
That's what I wanted to.
Awesome. Is there anything? Yes, sir. There's somebody in the back there.
Yeah, hello everyone. I just wanted to add to this KYC thing. In my school, we do something called onus. Onus is our need to understand our students.
Okay.
So we do that where we have a questionnaire and we spend a qualitative time with the parents even before the session starts, so that we get to know where the child stands. Because as an educator, I need to pull the child from there to the next level.
Absolutely.
So this is what we do every year. And coming down to these interactive classrooms and giving them an experiential learning. Our school is like adjacent to a beautiful lake in Bangalore.
Oh.
And we have huge pelicans and lovely birds perching there. So we give binoculars to our children, let them watch that, draw, come up with a story or a PPT presentation where they tell us, why does a pelican have a long beak? What does it do with that? How does it take the fish inside and throw the water out, excess water out? So all these things, and mind you, it's like grade 2 and grade 3 children doing it.
Awesome.
I thought of
Ma'am, I would like to add on one thing on this.
Yeah.
This year we have started in the school. We had a format where the parent, like there's certain questionnaire, yes and no, one word, where the parent fills in that what are the hobbies of the children, what they like, are they interested in music. Then that same questionnaire for the child, where the child fills in. And then the same questionnaire for the teacher. So you will come to know a connection will be better. Is that aspect correct, what the child is feeling? Suppose the child says, I like class, the parent says, the child likes classical music. The teacher says, no, he likes rock band. The child also says, I like the rock band. So now you will come to know the child better from both the areas. So we have started this year and it has worked out to be very productive, and we have come to know our children very well about their needs, wants and desires.
Very nice. Sir, there's something you wanted. Yes, please. A quick one. Yes.
Yeah, we do have some metrics. One is called as a BLT, baseline test. Second is observation. Observation. When you observe, you get to understand. Third is very important, very, very important, most complex thing called ask. ASK, ask. Ask them. You get to know.
Dr. 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, I think everybody is getting hungry with the question.
Yes.
One last question.
I think this has to be the last question. And if there's anything more coming up, probably during the networking time, you can connect with them, please.
Is
Yes,
the
sir.
is the book really there? Change cannot be given you every day.
I'm sorry, sir. It's a cooked up story.
Thank you. I was Googling and I'm not getting that book.
Just one last answer to that. One very simple technique that many of the schools use, we also use, is especially primary, pre-primary, to get the teacher to move with the child. Right? See, there is a big drop-off that happens when one teacher is handling a child for a year and he or she knows if 1 year a child has spent with a teacher, generally the teacher will know the child fairly well. When it goes to the second, grade nursery to PP1 or PP1 to PP2, a new teacher comes in, that knowledge is many times lost.
Yes.
So the handing, especially in early years, teachers moving with the children
With the children, go to the next high class.
Or a very strong handing over of the baton, as sir is saying, with a complete list, कि ये बच्चे का ये है, you know, or a kind of a joint class for some time with the old teacher and the new teacher coming in. Those kind of things, at least the tacit knowledge gets passed on.
Okay. Oops.
We have anecdotal notebooks. So whatever the child did during the year, good, bad, something praiseworthy, what was the interaction with the parent, how did they respond, we write in the notebooks, and these are handed over to the next class teacher. So that record is maintained over the years.
Okay, I think we need to conclude.
Just last question.
Uh-oh.
You should give me
I think we have something more happening before we head for lunch.
Yeah, let's. It's wonderful hearing all of you, but I think most of you will agree with me that many students struggle in certain subjects, specifically mathematics, right? And science, physics, chemistry, right? So why does this struggle happen? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of psychosis, fear. And these days, one of the more important thing is not getting the right maths teachers. I think every school is struggling with that. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, because one aspect which I have seen happening is a teacher, we have spoken about student-centric learning and a teacher. Now, where is the role of management here? See, a teacher cannot take an independent decision. Every time she is given a very clear cut, this is a portion, this is a syllabus, you got to finish by this time, this is the examination. So the teacher has a very limited amount of freedom. Whatever freedom she has, it is from the management. If the management doesn't have an idea how to drive these matters, then the school will always struggle. So the management has to have an idea.
Okay.
As he has already told. See, what I mean to say here is, if there are 30 students in a class, you will have 10 students who are down the bottom, and then you have somebody on the top, and the teacher has to keep moving up and down. Is it possible for any teacher? The children who can't
Can I stop you here? Can we have a discussion at the networking?
Ma'am, I would like to answer that.
Yeah.
Sir, sir, we will take it up. I would like to answer, sir.
I think we need to conclude. There's something more that needs to happen now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, I would like to answer that during the networking.
Yeah.
That's the answer, sir.
Networking, yes. At the networking, please. Thank you all for being patient. I think we were a little impatient. We have run out of time, actually. We've taken more time than we were given. And thanks for everything, and thanks for the panelists one more time. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thanks.
And if you're still energized, may we have a huge round of applause for all of them.